Today's podcast is sponsored by Fire Facilities Incorporated, expert engineers, designers, and manufacturers of steel training towers, burn rooms, and mobile units that are all made in the USA. Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today's guest is Dave Pruitt. Now, he's a lifelong learner of the emergency services, and he spent the last 19 and a half years with the city of Hillsborough. He currently holds the title of Major over Fire, EMS, and Special Operations. Now, his true passion is in training and educating the emergency services personnel. And in the past few years, he has taken many of the city's unoccupied structures and used them for training. The use of these acquired structures has brought national and international attention to the small central Texas town where he works. Brother Dave Pruitt, thanks for being on my show.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for having me. Love to talk about fire.
Good deal. Now, right off the bat, I got to ask, does anybody come up to you for autographs, say you're the Iron Sheik from wrestling?
every once in a while. The Iron Sheik in latter years. Yeah. It's, trust me, if I were to stand up, the wall would go blank. I need to reduce the silhouette and get back to my fighting weight for sure.
It's something we always struggle with, don't you think? We were talking right before we started recording, and we were talking about that exact thing. So for me, I used to be, when I left Lexington and came up to New Albany, I was 270 pounds. And I was having a hard time breathing, tying my shoes, or I'd get winded cracking a beer. And I was like, well, shit, I got to do something. So I ended up losing about 60 pounds of that. But it's not like you get that limit. Like for me, it was like, okay, I want to be 210 pounds. Once I got to that 210s, it's not like you can go back to the way you did things. It's always a struggle. There's no finish line. You're just always dealing with exercise and food, and it gets harder as you get older. Is that something you found as well?
Oh, absolutely. And things that I didn't listen to growing up, the guys that were sitting there, eat one less scoop of ice cream, eat this, it's going to catch up with you. Things that worked in college, I ran for a couple of years, collegiate level cross country. Man, we'd go out there and do, 20, 30 plus miles a week just as our warm-ups. Never did I think that I couldn't just go run a few miles and man, I'd drop that weight. Once I got into my 40s, I mean, it's a struggle every day. You cannot outrun the fork. And so, making those lifestyle changes. My dog may come in. She's nosing at the door.
That's quite all right.
Father
Time is undefeated. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. He's holding that record pretty solid. I try to get out and stay active. My wife is extremely active. So I'm fortunate that, she sets a good tone, but she's also still at that activity level that she downs half a cheesecake. I can't even see it on her. If I even look at that cheesecake, I'm probably having to go to the other side of my closet to my fatter section.
Just looking at the cheesecake.
Work doesn't let me wear sweats every day. I wish. Need to go back to the line so I can be in PT clothes for a while. But yeah, the office job expects pants and collars and stuff. So
it's a constant struggle, man. I think one of the best things you can do for yourself is just realize that it's going to be the rest of your life. And I go to gym and I see guys that are, 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and they're doing something. They're moving. They're not, they're not trying to get ready for a show or anything like that. But every single day I see the same older men come in, and it inspires me. I'm like, okay, that's what it looks like. I'm not going to be running, 12 miles an hour for 2 minutes forever. It's going to be what I'm seeing. So.
No, absolutely. Well, and choosing those mentors, exactly like you say, when I was early on, I came across Joe Angelini Sr.'s story out of FDNY. And I was crazy fortunate to meet and get to talk with Ray McCormack not too long ago. And I asked him about Joe. Was he as cool as he portrayed him? And I mean, at 63 plus years old, he's riding back step on one of the busiest rescues on the planet, making fires. And I'm like, okay, if that guy can do it, obviously totally different body type, totally different this and that, but it's that will, it's that desire to keep moving forward, to not settle. whether it's working out, getting out, stretching, throwing ladders, and even practicing EMS skills. As soon as we see what happens when you become sedentary,
right?
We run those people on a routine basis, and almost without fault, the greatest percentage of them, they stopped moving at some point, or they suffered some injury that allowed that weight to start coming on, and then bam, I mean, they're behind that 8 ball, and I'm trying not to get there. We do have a comfortable couch out in the other room, but
that's the tough part, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I learned when I started, of course, the hardest thing to do is make a new routine, especially something that's physically challenging that you're not used to. So for me, it was, I liked sitting down and watching TV, right? So that became my motivation. Like, to do that, I felt like I had to earn that. So I earned it by running, going to the gym, or, whatever combination of exercise. They kept me in that if I could just get 1 month under my belt of running and exercising, I feel like it'd be part of my schedule now, So that's how I rewarded myself. I'm like, another thing is I didn't try to do everything at once. I know a lot of people, my nephew said, you know what, I'm not going to drink any beer. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to eat good. And I said, listen, I think that's all great, but I think you're setting yourself up to fail with one of those three. Try just exercising, eat and drink whatever you want. Then after you're comfortable with exercising, then start downgrading little bits here and there, because if you want to succeed, you got to set yourself up early on and say, okay, I'm not changing everything. I'm changing just a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That is, Stephanie will love to hear that, because you described, I cold turkey the whole thing, go to the store and buy all these proteins and all this stuff. And then one weird shift, because I'm never particularly off work, phone call from being called back in, and or one weird time frame. Okay, I'll just eat a cheeseburger right now, and then bam, it's all life is kind of like that. A couple of those diets to where there is no stopping. You continually go. So yeah, no, I have since adopted. Okay, let's just eat healthier. Have your days, have your stuff, budget the time. It's not like when I was younger. I actually do, it's an 18-minute workout. I was very skeptical at first when my wife showed it to me. It's 9 1-minute sessions with a 1-minute rest in between. It's more of a HIIT workout.
Right.
I was very skeptical. Man, after this first and second one, I'm pouring sweat, and I'm like, okay, this is actually working. I can't, not that tying my shoes is particularly an option most days. But man, to lean over, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm hurting and sore. And she's like, all right, there you go. So yeah, it's got to be moderation, but it's got to be consistency. And most people see those results. Actually looking forward to it. I'm gonna be out this next week, but one of my guys is getting back. He was horrifically injured in a motorcycle wreck off duty.
Ooh.
This next week will be his first shifts back. He's been off for months healing, and he is a workout fanatic and guru, and so we are all kind of looking forward to working out with Tracy and just getting back his levels of confidence, because he was fairly solid, swole guy for the accident, and so getting him back on board, looking forward to just walking through, if it was just arms or legs, or I don't do a lot of the CrossFit stuff. That was never my thing, but just solid cardio and strength training most days.
You don't have to go nuts. You don't have to, like, say, get ready for a show. I think if you look at what we do, for example, back is really important, right? Carrying the air packs, overhaul, all that's, carrying all the extra weight we do, our back is important. I think cardio is a big one, because we go from nothing to something like that. So absolutely, training that way. I used to run steady state all the time. I would run the same pace for 30 minutes or 2 hours, whatever, depending on what I was doing. And that was great. But what I was doing is I was guaranteeing my heart rate is only going to get X. That was it. I was only going to get up to 100, whatever it was. So you'd mentioned HIIT. I started for the past, 3-4 years. All I do now when I run is interval training. So I'll run certain speed, and then I'll walk for a minute, and then I'll notch it up and all that. And I think that's easier to do, at least mentally. If you sit there and go, I'm going to run this particular pace for 2 hours, you're going to talk yourself out of it. But if you say, I'm going to run 30 minutes and then I'll have a couple minutes of walking, I think that makes a big difference.
No, absolutely. No, 100%.
But I do want to know what got you, Dave Pruitt, into the fire service and brought you to where you're at today.
Well, like a lot of guys, my dad was on the job. He ran his first call somewhere around June of 71. I was born May of 72. So there really hasn't been a single day of my life outside of the fire service. Grew up in Fort Worth, and at the end of our street, pump and truck 17 would come driving past, going, making runs. And he would hold me up on his shoulders. You know, we'd watch him drive by and we'd go visit the stations. He started out in the ambulance side, worked for actually funeral home ambulance service in the early 70s.
Wow.
And then actually, crazily enough, one of the ambulances there came off the emergency series. And we would watch that routinely and borderline religiously. And so it was a no-brainer for me. I honestly, when you talk about things that are passionate, you know, and it may not be for everybody. If a fire truck came by, you know, I live here in Arlington now. I've got 2 stations, about a mile and a half away. When I hear them go out, there's a distinct pull. Let me go out there and listen. Okay, do I hear more than one, or are they putting a box on something? Yeah. You know, I'm shaking the thing. And so, this is what I always wanted to do. You know, when I got out of high school, I was fortunate enough to go to college. And actually my degree's in education, which plays in heavily to a lot of things. You know, and I got to a point, you know, like, you know what, I want to pursue this. I want to do this. I never volunteered. In our area here in the Metroplex, there's just not a ton of volunteering opportunities. It's a little more on the outskirts of the Metroplex. And if you're familiar with Dallas-Fort Worth, it is a relatively larger metropolitan area. A buddy of mine joked, Dallas is an hour away from Dallas, depending on where you're at. And so the volunteering route wasn't really set up for me that way. But no, I put myself through Fire Academy. I actually put myself through all 3, fire, basic EMT to get your fire certification, and put myself through paramedic school with the help of my parents and family. And was fortunate enough, like I say, haven't looked back. You know, and now when I talk with the young guys, never really thought that I would be now here, you know, looking at 2 decades, and would love to say that there's 2 decades in front of me. But man, knowing that I'm closer to the expiration date than I was at the start date, it is a weird feeling some days. You know, and the healthy respect, you know, the conversations my dad and I had growing up, he would come home from work, whether it was a good day, a bad day. He always told me things like, I get to go to work, you know, and I knew guys' dads who had to go to work, you know, and you would see them complaining and grumbling. That was never my dad. You know, my formative years, I got to see the growth and development of a lot of things. Because he had me actively involved, hanging around, you know, the city we grew up in was, Texas standards, not crazy small. There was about 7,000 people in the little city. So everything revolved around being up at the fire station and being around the meetings. My mom was on the auxiliary. And so we were up there quite a bit. And, you know, it's been fantastic.
It sounds like you didn't have a chance. It sounds like you never had a chance to be anything else.
And everything always kind of just fell back into that. You know, no matter where I was at, you know, it always, every time that pumper would come down the street, or at the distance, I'm drawn to it. I'm looking at those things and doing those things. And so, yeah, I'm glad both my boys, they want to be different things in life, and I'm thankful for that. I want them to do whatever they want to do. We support them. When I got out of college, I actually taught school for a little while. My degree's in music, so I was fortunate enough to be able to go to school on a music scholarship. That's my other passion. Love entertaining and being on the stage and stuff like that. We took our boys the other night with COVID lifting. My parents got them tickets to go see a show in Fort Worth, and so that finally occurred 2 years later. And to see those people perform, yeah, I feel that same pull and that same passion to educate and entertain and sing. Not necessarily what this is, but I'll give a shout out to my guys. I've been with the 50s doo-wop group since the early 90s. And
really?
We've sung a ton of places. Arlington, the Dallas-Fort Worth area is so neat and eclectic. There's everything right here, from major entertainment, major sports, the venues. I sang as a regular entertainer on the Johnny High show. It skyrocketed to fame. We were on the show the same time Leanne Rimes was.
Oh, wow.
And she had just signed her record deal, and very neat time to be in the music business. These days, exactly what we're doing here, there may be some kid 2 houses down recording the next big album in his bathroom on his iPad. Yeah. In the early 90s, digital was still on the horizon. There were a couple studios that were doing it, but it reminds me of the old NASA stuff you see, and you've probably seen some of it in your Air Force career. You walk in and what's this huge room for? Oh, this is where the computers used to be.
Yeah.
Did a session and he was running it all from his tablet. And I remember his room being full of all these wires and all this stuff. It's technology has progressed so much in that field and in firefighting, a lot of parallels, right. But it's been fun for sure.
So I see you got some guitars back there.
Yeah.
You might be I think you're my second firefighter / entertainer, because I had Chief Eddie Buchanan on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I can't carry a tune. I cannot play an instrument. So I got none of those skills.
I play the piano a little bit. It's a weird deal. My dad, through high school, was a decent musician, and then he got into the fire service and he picked up the bagpipes. He put in 38 years total. So probably about 20, 25 years ago now, hey, I'm going to learn the bagpipes. I'm like, okay, cool. The guys at his station that didn't know that he had such a musical background were like, what are you doing? He plays, it wouldn't shock me if he's still playing 4 or 5 times, a month probably. Does a ton of funerals, does a ton of military stuff. Fortunate, and that's one of the things we get to talk about is music, fire. And I was saying he would come home and just imparting these nuggets, and some of the things he said in the mid 70s, as I was a young guy, and definitely some of the stuff I got to see when I got into my teenage years. He was a battalion aide. And so if I went and rode out with him, heck yeah, I stood by the command vehicle. And so I got to see all this outside portions of the fires, hear the command level decisions that were being made from the chiefs and the initial arriving bosses, and stuff that I didn't think would make any sense at any point. Now there's those little spots to where, oh yeah, he said this, 25, 30 years ago. Something as simple as keep your mask, keep to where you can smell. I remember seeing an apartment fire and I could see the smoke. I was young and dumb. What's white smoke, black smoke? It's simply smoke. They're going to work. Right. And he kind of sniffed and he's like, smells like chicken. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And sure enough, whoever's coming out, they're grumbling. I'm like, how can these guys be upset? They're fighting a fire. And he asked, he's like, hey, what was it? And he's like, oh, careless cook, chicken and rice. And I'm like, all right, are you a wizard? How did you know? And we just drove all these units, a box alarm assignment to this apartment fire. And then, add 10, 15 years later, I'm standing in front of this house. And as I walk up and in, and I had my mask on, as soon as I pull my mask off, I'm like, hey, go find the toaster. That's what burnt bread smells like. And transitioning realistic training. It's one of the things I love about Mellon, the amygdala response. We have the perfect opportunity every day to program these things in, just sitting at the station. And you see guys losing their mind as the auditory and visual occlusion occurs. Give them those references. Dave and I did a class up in Oklahoma a few months back, and we had a little box or a little smudge pot out front. Wasn't anything crazy, wasn't anything that was going to violate EPA or anything like that. They needed to tie something burning to that event. I love talking about realism. And we try to make things so realistic that they're not. Mm-hmm. When something as simple like that, I know you do. You're fortunate enough to do a lot of fixed facility stuff. Every evolution is the same. Mm-hmm. It's all this one gigantic end of the world. When I was in rookie school, and this has stuck with me forever, there was smoke showing from the top of the burn tower. Now, these guys, the instructors, had been faithful to try to wipe us out every day, no matter what, somehow or another. Most days it was us having infighting and not knowing how to communicate, which, it is what it is. But so they ring in this box alarm, and we had whatever we had. I think there was 5 engine companies in my academy. We're stretching all this hose, climbing these fire escapes, doing all this stuff. We finally make it. The engine, first arriving engine, makes it to the 5th floor landing. 3 of the instructors are up there cooking on a grill their lunch, and we all got downstairs. We're all standing there on the grinder, and the lead instructor's like, "None of y'all thought to just walk up and see what was on fire?" Well, not making excuses. Not a single drill before had we not been significantly disciplined, exercises, laps, whatever. If we didn't stretch a line or if we didn't do these things, I'm sitting there going, you know what, maybe I'll go check before we put hose in the ground, and that's hung with me. I love getting after it and getting with it, but man, let's go find out what we're about to be doing. Are we parked in the right spot? Yeah. Do our mutual aid in my district? We have very narrow streets. You can very easily get hemmed up and shut down the whole rest of the response just by your inaccurate parking. Our hydrants, do we need to come off a different running route with a second due rig to catch a better hydrant? We seem to be the national let's burn everything in our backyard capital of Texas. Is it some dude with a pile of leaves in the back and it's just blowing up over the house and nothing's on fire, so anyways, I said a lot of things and probably didn't say anything.
No. And that's it. You hit on, you actually took me on a trip back in my own brain on some memories I completely forgot. And one of them was, I had an excellent captain my first year at Lexington. Greg Stapleton he's an excellent captain. He was an excellent major, and I'm sure he was an excellent chief when he retired. But we would go into buildings for smells and bells. And I remember one particular, he walked in, he goes, yeah, that smells like a ballast. We need to find a ballast. So he already eliminated looking at a bunch of things, and it was a ballast. And then we went into a house. This lady said, she smells smoke, but it was kind of weird smoke. She could understand it. So all the way going there, we're all thinking electrical, right? We walk in the door, and the at the time, Captain Stapleton, he took a sniff, and he goes, Barnes, go open up the dishwasher. Okay. I opened up the dishwasher, and I said, okay. And he said, well, what's laying on the heating coil? And I pulled the trays out, and I look, and there's a piece of plastic on the heating coil.
Yep.
So he was, he was tuned in to all these things. And I remember thinking in my head, I'm like, I've got to remember these smells. I mean, I remember that exact, I was like, I have to remember the smell because I want to be as good as that guy. And I was a young
Oh,
man at the
absolutely.
time. So it's funny that you say that because it took me right back to that, to where there's more to fighting fire than just dragging hose and spraying water. You can make it better by building that Rolodex of memories. So when you see it, you can react appropriately.
Well, and you mentioned the fires. To me, every call is a fire. And once again, transported back to my youth. Uh, and I don't remember how often we played it. It seems like all the time. My dad had to work. He was gone to the station like everybody. Uh, Doing those size ups, doing those things. What if this was on fire? What if this was this? Like everybody, my department runs. The majority of our calls, they're showing up in an ambulance and some sort of support vehicle, not a fire apparatus. In the past few years, I've started educating differently, and educating to me. So there's instructors, there's teachers, and there's educators. And for me, when I break that down, I instruct you on specific things, temporary things. We're building skill sets. Instructors to me are builders. Teaching those sets of skills, we want to be able. Teachers should be able to evaluate and take in there and hone those things. Instructor 1, 2, 3, however you want to view it. Education to me, and I ask my guys this all the time. It's like, tell me what you were thinking. I saw what you did. And whether it was good, bad, and different, tell me what you were thinking that got you to that point. If I can shape that thought process and add in different things, and this will be outdated depending on who's listening. Felix's Bag of Tricks, the cartoon when I was young, man, everything came out of Felix's bag, and it was awesome. Let me add in these little nuggets. Did you look at this? Did you look at that? And we program in these responses as it drifts. Oh, and so I started teaching a few years ago, whether I'm teaching fire, EMS, or law enforcement, trying to line up everything the same. For instance, I'm going to assume that does Albany have its own ambulance, or Lexington? Did either of those?
Lexington, yes. New Albany used to. We got rid of them. Now we use private. I don't know. We could talk about that all day long. I was all for it until I saw the level of care the private ambulances are delivering. Our guys were some of the best I've ever worked with. But yeah,
it is absolutely. Well, I teach hose. I love working with hose. I wish I was as smart as some of these guys out there, but I really love hose management. The same places that I have the stretcher getting bound up and I'm having to change and modify all of that to get to a patient is probably the exact same places I'm going to have difficulty on my stretch. And whether I'm hitting and move or flowing and move, I'm going to have to modify either whether I'm doing it solo or if I'm a heel man or number 2 position, that same pinch point. That's probably the same place I'm going to have trouble isolating on a vent or search. And because there's a reason I'm having to get in that pinch point. And if I can duplicate those things across a level of different areas, is it something that I'm able to replicate? And so, every time we go on a medical, and I'm not going to lie, my department's not perfect. We struggle with the same things everybody does, but one of the things we try to implement is a scene size up on everything.
Nice.
It does make a difference. We average 15 to 20 working fires a year. We'll get a handful of other things. They're getting dressed and putting hose on the ground for structures, vehicles, other things about 45, 50 times a year. Nowhere near the record, but more than some.
Right.
What we found with our responses is that's nowhere near enough time to build that habit, especially of solid radio communication. That same young medic or engine captain or daily officer, they're probably going to check on to, 200 to 300 medicals. Okay, yeah, it makes a difference. Hey, it's a two-story. It's a Victorian. We're going in the rear. Are they looking at the same things? And we try to pull in. We need to do it more often. There's the curse of the fire service. Looking at those things as our population becomes aged. Sean Duffy, who pointed out, it's like, man, look at that ramp. And it was a pristine ramp on this house of this picture, that he had up on the screen. It's like, where do you think they're going to go in and out of? I was like, man. And it wasn't on the A side. It was like on the B side, window coming off the driveway or door coming off the driveway. And I instantly flashed back to fires that I've had. I'm sitting there forcing this front door that's got their whole life in front of it because their life has changed due to injury or age or whatever. Everything's coming out of this Bravo side now. And we're sitting here messing, trying to stretch through all this debris and clutter as they've adjusted their life. Not necessarily hoarder conditions, right, but they've adjusted their life to the mobility of a chair or a walker, or the fact that, they can only move 20 feet before they're winded. And so those medicals give you that crazy good window into fire tactics that, yeah, do we want to be going to medicals? No. Do we want people to be sick? No. Man, is this a view into how we're going to fight this fire? Oh, 100%. Can I replicate that in the Bay? Hey, guys, wow, remember this. Remember how hard it was to get the stretcher there? I'm thinking, unless they make a Minuteman stretcher that I can put on my shoulder and walk through all that crap, maybe I'll talk to my striker rep about that, but get them in front of together.
I'm glad we're on computer right now, not face-to-face, because if we were face-to-face, I would place both hands on top of your head and give you a great big kiss on top of your head, because that is something I constantly try to tell people, especially my new guys. When you're going to make way more medical than you are fire. So every time you pull up to make a medical run, regardless of the medical run, size up the house like it's fire. When you go inside, size it up like you got a stretch line. You're the only other person that I've heard say that. So we're officially best friends, and I feel like I could borrow money from you. That's how close I feel to you right now.
and it's funny you say it that way. So when Dave Mellon and I met on phone first, similar thing, and that's what I think of the fire service right now. We're as close knit as we've ever been due to the technology.
Yes.
And of course I see it as double-edged, because I can daily surround myself around what I heard. I think it was Jocko. Surround yourself around people that get it. Mm-hmm. And then whatever it is, and it does make it weird some days when I'm around the people that just don't get it.
Right.
When I check on, because by just the vehicle I drive, I get to a lot of scenes first, and I'll check on with whatever, and give a size up and give us stuff. And we used to do it a lot more often. We would go ahead and give assignments, and those assignments would filter back into the morning shift change. Okay, who's doing this? Hey, if we get this EMS skill pop up, let's do it this way. Or it's your turn to do airway. You're the hydrant guy today. You're the nozzle guy today. Whatever that was going to be. We used to map all this stuff out. And I know there's a lot of places that still do it. I see the boards popping up on social media. Excuse me, guys giving their running order and their assignments. And I love the places that have, it's going to be interesting to say, have the freedom to have the constraint that that's your job today. Right. I remember I was fortunate, the city I grew up in, where my dad was, started his fire career. It was, every time the bells went off, he was out, gone. And he then transitioned to I guess what's nationally a mid-sized department. Arlington's got 17 stations. He put in 24 years there, and you had your assignment. And the same, I've got buddies in places. My air pack buddy from rookie school works in South Dallas. And I asked him one day a driving question. He's like, I don't worry about driving. I've got my assignment as a backstep firefighter. And I'm like, huh, how interesting is that? Because I never know, honestly. And that's where I've started honing it. Okay, instead of being confused, because we had people that it wasn't their cup of tea. They wanted to come in and have it be one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them gravitated to departments where they could do that. Where I'm at, I mean, you literally they work 48.96, and their 48-hour tour may be on a brush truck, maybe the lead medic on a call. Thankfully, we don't get a ton of rescues, but they may be getting into their wet gear and going to do a pickoff on one of our swollen stream areas, car fire, and depending on who is on what apparatus, they may be fluctuating through assignments. And, because our transports sometimes take us over an hour away. If we have to go up into Dallas, Fort Worth, that's a minimum 2.5, 3 hour turnaround. So the guy that's left behind, or multiple guys sometimes, okay, is he now the boss? Or is he now, where's he at on this thing?
Right.
And so that's where I started looking at, okay, I got to make this simple for me. Everything's the same. And where a lot of people would gravitate, okay, is everything a patient? No, to me, everything was a fire. My house just happened to look like a patient. The smoke going in and out. Okay, funny, they call that ventilations. I'm concerned about ventilations when I walk up. How is the structure, the bone structure of my house, a suspect? I'm not a police officer. I deal with a lot of our law enforcement side. Is there any structural components that I need to be looking at and worried about? It's crazy. I always taught to always look to the roof line. Okay, I look to the eyes. I look to the head. Is there anything there that's telling me something different? And so I was able to, nothing great, no epiphanies. I'm worried about one thing when I get to work, and that's fighting that fire. Whether I'm dropping it off at the hospital or I'm dropping supply line at a hydrant, or in my Chiefs buggy that I drive. I'll tell you right now, I love, and it's my product. I've made more fires off an ambulance or a Tahoe than I have off of a pumper or a truck. And so, heck yeah, force a door, VES, get in there ahead of the hose line with the can, whatever that's going to be. That's more my comfortability level.
Wait, so you pull up in a Chiefs vehicle and you'll force a door and go in with a can?
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
Again, hands on the side of your head, big kiss on top of your head. You might be my newest hero. You got a cape back there? I can't see. You might be.
Yeah. Yeah. Not today. Yeah. Well, and
that's cool.
It's the first, and a lot of places don't focus on this. That first 5 to 10 minutes, a lot of guys teach classes on that. And if you've got help coming, fantastic, good on you. Our second due engine company, if they are sitting in their stations, is going to be anywhere from 10 to 18 minutes, depending on who gets out of the house first. We're the only paid department in our county. And we did a critical evaluation years ago. And we were losing headway. I won't say losing fires, but we were losing headway at that bottle change, which crazy enough, we've gone to the new Scott snap change. And I heard somebody say, it's like, man, it's quick. What used to be our little break and our little rehab, that minute or two that it took them to, get a bottle changed out.
Yeah. Man,
that thing's on, and they snapped it back into place. You're good to go. And I'm like, no. I need to take a breather for a second. But, and I forget where it was. It was someplace close. Chief officer made a grab the other day. And like I say, I applaud these guys. I watch their videos on the internet that have the opportunity and the luxury to step out. I see them put their coat on over a pair of, Class Bs or whatever they're wearing, and they do that size up, and it's gold. I mean, it really is. The assignments they're giving, the overall pace, just due to calmness that a lot of them are able to establish. Trust me, I love that.
Right.
My district, not crazy old, but the city was built, founded in the mid 1860s. The department, Hook and Ladder 1, founded in 1883, joined Hose Company 1 in 1885, started the department. We still have structures that date back to that time frame. It is very neat to open up some ceiling line and see old fire. And it was probably put out with buckets, and those guys showed up on horses, or horse-drawn rigs. And know that house is still there because of their efforts. They ran to the scene and got out a rocking good attic fire, it looks like. We show up with $2-3 million worth of apparatus in the street, and some days get it handed to us. I don't know where that. It's not all fuel loading, I think, some days, but you got to be able to step off ready to go. Like I say, my dad, I saw him be a warrior through his whole career. And as he became a chief's aide, obviously there wasn't a lot of inside stuff. When he retired after 38 years, one of his passions was fire history. He started teaching at Arlington's Academy and spread that wealth out at a couple other places. So I saw him do 48 years, really my whole life. He just recently handed that class off to another firefighter. And then one of my academy instructors, again, going back that far, you need to be careful who's mentoring and who's imprinting on your young. Mm-hmm. His name's Wes Rhodes. He was working out one day and just getting it, and going, and he said something, and I'm paraphrasing, and it was a theme of all of our instructors. He's like, the fire doesn't care. It doesn't care that you had a bad night. It doesn't care that you had kids. It doesn't care that you ate that extra burrito. It's going to attack you, and this is held true. It is going to attack you with everything it's got. You've got to step off the truck as a combatant. Eddie Steele, he works for Weatherford, is the president of Frontier Fools, great guy. He talks about their chief addresses them as warriors. And and that ethos. So yeah, when I step out of my buggy, my guys will tear me up. We don't call them buggies. When I step out of my Tahoe, man, I'm getting dressed and going to work, because it may be those crucial seconds, and it's on the back of rigs. Name dropping, obviously. I watch these guys. Fortunate enough to know a couple of them. On the Howard Reinwald down south of me towards Houston, on the back of their trucks. When seconds count, we count seconds.
Right.
Talking about instructional skills, still the longest, and I don't know if it's the same way in Kentucky or if it's in Indiana. Do you remember what the longest skills were that you had to do time-wise, like legit time-wise?
The longest skills?
Yeah, like when you were graded for your state skills test and the guys were sitting there with a piece of paper throughout your academy. I want to say it's still like making a catch-all. Do you remember we used to roll?
Oh, yeah.
And even find a tarp these days, it's whatever. But and then usually extending that 2.5 or 3 inch line, breaking the nozzle down. Those were several minute skills. Everything else in our life, other than patient assessment, even EMS wise, is all a 90-second or less skill. The majority of them are 60 seconds or less. Why am I not teaching the same when I teach airway management? If you have to breathe, they have to breathe. And when you do airway management, have your young medic or young guy or gal hold their breath. And when they take that breath, man, they need to be actively ventilating. How am I not doing that on my ventilation profiles on the house? And that solid 15 to 30 seconds reevaluation of what I'm doing. Teach them all the EMS protocols you want. I've had very few EMS calls go sideways to where I thought I was going to die.
Right.
There have been one or two, and they were epic. But if I take that skill, but I'm sitting there, my patient's going to die.
Mhm.
If I don't reevaluate these things. I've got young people, and I've met young people that know how to make that monitor do 5-second or 5-minute vitals, and they're whizzes at that. And I have them do it for me when I have to take a patient occasionally. Get to take a patient occasionally. Sorry.
There you go. Words matter.
Yeah. If you see me stepping off the ambulance, everybody else is somewhere in the system doing something profound, I'm sure. But I got that chance because I know we're going to run those medicals. Once again, turning those into fires, that 5 and 10 minute checks, how does that not roll back into those things? We've been very fortunate to have a few new hires. I told the guys, my FTOs, and the way we do it, so we're 48.96. They straddle 2 shifts. So they're coming on day 2 of a shift and then work a day 1, but that young guy or gal gets to see 2 whole shifts operating, and then they have 2 people assigned to them. That way we can provide nearly 48 hours of complete coverage,
right,
to where somebody is constantly hands-on. And I challenged them this last go round with one of our young people coming in. Every 10 minutes, have them report to you. And I got from one of them, not all of them, but one of them, why would we do it that way? Well, we know that 10-minute trauma window. We know most of our part checks at 10 minutes in is when we're still hitting our collapse zones, even arriving at rooms that are post flashover now due to the loading. We know we're at those optimal moments that we need to be evaluating things. And if we program them at 10 minutes, it's not micromanagement, it's accountability. And I, give them the flexibility. Honest to goodness, I could care less how they mop the bay floor. But, and I feel like I'm rambling again, but the bay floor is an ideal large area search every time, unless you're just in one of these little single engine stalls, where you're touching both walls. Man, that's a large area search. We have our young people and our seasoned people alike try to burn a bottle of air while you're mopping the floor. Connect in your RIT lines, do that stuff. And myself included, telling myself, there's days I'll put on my pack out of my vehicle, make sure it works, do my full function, come up. There's days that it takes a minute or 2, well, seconds, but it takes a few seconds to get everything connected. And then us being in sync, mopping the floor, total daylight. You can't tell me that we're going to perfectly do that under duress.
Right.
When we have a hard time doing it in the bay floor and we know we're about to do it.
Yep.
And just getting in that sync. And that's why I like doing it mopping. Sweeping's just walking. Mopping, I told you Navy family and all this and that.
Yeah.
Swabbing the deck. I mean, that's a dance. That's a coordination. When you look at the RIT evolutions, the successes, the failures, the near misses, so much of that we're trying to teach just coordinated movement, effort, communication. Let's go left, right, sideways. And I don't know, I knock on wood, I hope my department never goes through it. But man, I hope those guys, it's just like walking up next to each other, mopping the floor.
Right.
And they just click right in and go.
I think that's why Nozzle Forward is such a great class, because it teaches communication and, great techniques for moving hose. And I've told people that, yeah, you can use a 2.5 and go upstairs with 2 people. No, you can't. Yeah, you can. You really can. It's technique. And if you put it in your brain already, like that's impossible, you'll never achieve it. But if you say, Absolutely. Hey, this might be possible, we can do it. So to your point, this coordinated effort, where communication is the common thread in everything we do, fire, EMS, dealing with your first wife, dealing with your kids, whatever it is, communication. And I don't know too many people that are great at communication. I wrote an article about it. And what inspired me to write this article was I bought a nice couch and stuff for my little room on the other side of the basement. And I was measuring before they got there, and I was like, there's no way it's going to fit. They're not going to make this turn. These guys came in and they had their own language, very esoteric language. And then the guy came out, the main guy came out and talked to the other guys. He goes, okay, he walked them through it. We're going to come through this door. We're going to get to the top. You're going to do a low down. He's going to do a right high. And I was like, holy shit. But I still thought they're not going to get that down there. They got everything down there lickety split. And before they left, I was just so in awe. I said, dude, can I talk to you for 2 seconds? He goes, yeah. And I told him. And he was surprised that firefighters aren't expert in communication. And I'm like, we're not. We're just not. And I think we prioritize it way, way lower than what we should. But here we are, just people moving furniture, and they communicated not only effectively, I would dare say it perfectly. Because he hadn't even had a plan. He goes, look, if I'm down here and I'm getting pushed on the wall, I want you to do a low high and him do a right or whatever it was. And they didn't have to use that plan, but it was amazing to watch these guys communicate. They could give a class to firefighters, to anybody, but screw everybody else. I'm only concerned about firefighters exactly. On how to communicate effectively and better. I loved it. I loved it. I had to throw my little 2 cents in there.
No, absolutely. Well, and you hit on something really neat. And we kind of talked about this before. We keep ourselves locked up. People still wonder what we do, right. And there's the jokes, there's the this, recliners, whatever. The business world, as they peel back the layers, as they see inside our world, that is one of the most shocking revelations is we don't communicate well. I tell people, don't let this voice confuse you. It's sounding good and it's saying things are 2 completely different components at times. I should go off script or work on my script more when I say things. And then I think it's Andy Starnes talks about the money that's spent helping us communicate, and grasp things. And of course he talks about the thermal imaging side, and the government will spend millions upon millions of dollars on their thermal imaging capabilities. The fire, we're such a small fragment of that. We know it's crazy to me that the recreational dive community has better, mask to mask communications,
right,
than the people that I expect. The Olympic caliber athlete at 3 a.m. to read this fire perfectly, to come in and get my kids and my wife and my dog, and knowing full well that once they get out of earshot, hang on, who's talking to me? Do they go into video and auditory exclusion? Mm-hmm. How many times, you get to regularly be in a burn building also. I can't tell you the number of times I've waddled up to somebody below the layer and said, hey, I'm talking to you. And they're like, oh, we just heard noise. I'm like, well, who did you think that noise was directed to? I mean, it's just us 2 or 3 or whatever the number is. There's not a mouse in my pocket talking to you. You heard something, turn around and see what it is. And I'm fortunate enough to get to work with a few manufacturers that are addressing these issues. It blows my mind that it's taken this long. It cracks me up. I think it's I'm gonna say his name wrong. Oriel Palmer, did the wires in the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite movies, Towering Inferno. Steve McQueen looks at Paul Newman and says, hey, can we do this? He's like, take about 2 minutes. And he goes over there with what he has in his pocket, the original Leatherman, wearing his sport coat. And literally in 2 minutes, Steve McQueen's talking, 1,000 floors up. And I probably have to look through the entire station twice to find somebody, let alone out on scene. I see the EMS unit over there. I see a helicopter coming. Okay, where is everybody? Oh, we're in this mythical void. Nobody gets to talk to one another. Oh, okay, good deal. I don't know. One of these days, maybe in our lifetime, it should be way simpler than it is. And this won't be popular to anybody out there that sells radios. You got us already. We have to buy it. Make it be affordable.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. Well, I think radios have gotten so much more complicated. I like the idea that we have different frequencies or different channels or groups to, to handle big stuff. But I got to tell you, I've yet to see too many radios that are made for the firefighter in the fire with gloves.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that drives me nuts, because I don't know, it just drives me nuts. I just feel like they're always playing catch up to us. They're never trying to get in front of the game,
Exactly. And we're right there. Come by and talk to us. We'll gladly let you see what we're going to operate with, how we're going to use it, and yeah, no, it's I don't know. I'm not confident whose hands they designed those for, period.
Not ours.
Yeah, there's little elves making them somewhere. And, you mentioned the gloves. Yeah, I read the report the other day that they released where the young man had to take his glove off to activate. And that's when, he suffered catastrophic burning to his hands. And when I went and looked at it, I was like, I get why you don't want to just that button willy-nilly to get pushed.
Right.
The second most important button on that whole radio is the hardest to get to.
Right.
I don't know, but
imagine a button that's on the bottom of your radio, literally the bottom, the part that goes in the charger, that's about, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches long and about 1/2 inch wide. So with the gloved hand, you can just reach up and basically squeeze the radio. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That would be awesome.
Yeah, something like that. Now, I'm going to switch gears on you real quick. This is something I really want to talk to you about, and we've sort of hit on a little bit, but you are the king of acquired structures. Are you not?
I'm going to say no, because you'll make me blush. I'm not afraid to do them. I'm not afraid to talk about them. It is still very much a taboo subject in some areas.
Yes.
And so I do a fair amount of them in a year's time. And
how many would you say you do? How many do you do in a year's time?
On a good year pre-COVID, we were doing probably 15 to 20, and then doing
holy shit.
And that's just in the city. 10, 15, and then we go out in the county and do them. And then depending on the class, like we had one a few years ago, I think we kept them for about 6 months, and we probably did 45, 50 separate burns in them. And one of the things that makes it unique, and I don't think this deserves the moniker of king or anything like that. Mellon called me the Babe Ruth of it one time. I will tailor the burn to your needs. So like right now, if you say, we would have the conversation kind of like we're doing, hey, tell me about your department. Tell me what you're wanting to achieve. And here's one of the things that makes me unpopular. A lot of times I may tell you, hey, Jake, you don't need to add fire to this. You need to add bay floor. You need to add whatever. And I think, and I hate to say this negatively, but I mean it negatively. My no's have gotten around. It's been a while since anybody's called me, hey, we want our guys to see heat. Well, I can't do that. And these days I won't do that. Mm-hmm. We've talked about a lot of people and a lot of stuff. There's this club mentality. Aaron talks about it. I want you to suffer the way I suffered. I was hot and miserable. I want you to be hot and miserable.
Right.
And
that's an antiquated way of thinking.
Absolutely. And especially with our candidates, You get them in there. Well, one, and this how this isn't just common knowledge, I don't know, but I have bumped into this quite a few times. Our gear is so well made, and it's fantastic that it is. I'm thankful that it is. But for you to feel on a normal evolution, and so I'm jumping around here, a normal, they say, Dave, we want a static hose at the door. We want to go from the door to the seat of the fire, put it out, or spray it, whatever they want to do, and exit. That realistically is less than a 5-minute evolution.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no way, unless it's just beyond blistering hot, we've let the fire get away, but a room and contents package, you're not feeling a bit of heat. And anybody that ever watches this, think back to the normal fires you go to. You're not feeling that heat. Why? One, your adrenaline and a bunch of things. Your gear's not thermally loaded and saturated.
Mm-hmm.
You're going in and out, and people expect when they call and like, hey, Dave, can you set us up a house? We want our guys to see what heat feels like. I'm like, no, you really don't. What you want is what I call disorientation and discomfort. And I really think go have them get on all their gear, lock them in the bathroom, and one of you standing there and just whip them with a wiffle ball bat or something, and and have them stack the little toys on top of themselves until they get it right. They're going to be as upset and as frustrated as they are going to be inside a burning house. And now this layers for me. And I always ask people, are they bringing in some instructors, or do they want me and my cadre or my peer group? I have a wonderful group of friends that I trust. I don't think you should put fire in anything if you don't trust the people that are coming and the people that you work with.
Absolutely.
Stuff's going to go sideways. I could name drop them all day long, but I got a great group of guys that I absolutely trust. What I've found to be true, and this goes back to that frustration, you get a young firefighter who's experienced it the first time, a young officer that's, if it's less than 5-10 times, they're experiencing it for the first time. There's zero communication, and you're expecting in that environment them to say something brilliant that makes the firefighter then react brilliantly and put the fire out. No. Very few times does that happen. And I take that back, and this is what I tell them, said, you need to stretch 1,000 times around your station. Well, we did it. We did this, we did that. Okay. And if they're close, hey, can I come by and watch? And it cracks me up. They'll stretch, it's 150-foot pre-connected line. They'll stretch 150 feet away from the truck and call it perfect. Well, it's perfectly straight.
Yeah.
And if that's their district, hey, good on them. That's the fires they're fighting. Most of my setbacks are less than 30 feet from street to door. We carry 200-foot packages that if we have to make a Charlie side entrance, we can make our push back to, and it just works out. And in some parts of the city, we know we're fighting exposures instantly. So that stretch has got to be able to make it into an exposure most days. If you're not doing it in the bay floor, don't add fire to this equation. So I do turn some people down occasionally when they ask those things, or they don't know what they want to see. I try to get it fairly detailed, and not that I am not some king or wizard at creating fire stuff. I listened to your deal the other day, the buddy of yours. I had it written down somewhere. You all got to do some acquired burns together.
Oh yeah, Chief Skaggs.
Yeah. Now here, everybody out there, 1403. My SFSI is up right now, so I am going to retake. I'm going to retake both fixed and acquired. I think it's important enough to sit in the room as those stories are being told.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to research that. I want to sit back through it. Right. My instructors are great. Rodvald, Matt Hoppel, Bill D'Agostino.
Oh, you mentioned some heroes of mine, especially D'Agostino.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah, he and I on the side were like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? And yeah, it was aces, fantastic class. But I'll ask them, okay, what are you wanting to see? You know, and the way 1403 was written, I don't disagree with this. I think you have to, Dutch, open the door. Come on in, baby.
We got a new guest on 3-Point Firefighter, Dutch the dog.
Exactly. And my wife's out of town, so I'm playing Mr. Mom to my boys, and she definitely doesn't understand why Mom's not here. So, but we grab my thought back.
1403, building the fire. What do you
1403. I love having my new recruits or my most inexperienced people in the class. Now, not inexperienced in their gear. Man, I stopped doing that years ago. You got to know how to wear your stuff or don't show up. You know, and I put that on the officers, you know, and stuff like that. Chief officers of the department, make sure your people come knowing how to function their stuff. To build those sets and to watch that ignition sequence, the way I always teach it, who's afraid of a baby? I'm watching this thing get born. You know, we move to an off side of the room. We do whatever. There's the people with the check line, you know, and the safety team and the stuff like that. We get ourselves to a good place where we can observe the conditions and watch it. You know, if they do start getting thermally loaded, okay, let's do time distance shielding. And, you know, okay, we've been in the room too long. Let's move around this. Wow, notice how that was instantly better. Mm-hmm. I've got them at their basic infancy of firefighting, watching fire be born. I'm raising this. Funny, my dog came in. I'm raising a baby and that animal, which is the fire, at the same time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we can stick in. They instantly feel that relief of getting behind a doorway or a wall, you know, a party wall or something. Hey, don't forget that when you're getting your ass cooked on a way, you know, doing a surge. Whoa, it was instantly cooler right here. I may want to back up two steps, gather my thoughts. Man, I'm reinforcing these at that as it's coming in. I'm not having to rebuild bad attitudes, training scars, anything.
Right.
And then we can sit there and look at okay, hey, it's rolling over, it's reaching, it's whatever. You know, whatever the package is going to do. And some days, you know, and I know we've both been there. Some days it takes the whole room. Fantastic. Some days it starts snuffing itself out.
Yeah.
Okay, look here, young guy or gal, young officer. This is a now event limited fire. Let's watch what happens from our safety of our spot. If they come in and whatever they do, are they in training a lot of air? Literally watched the thing today that you know, UL put out, and they had the little things hanging. It's funny they did that. I don't think that picture made it out. I will hang surveyor's tape on my entryways and my transitions points. Mm-hmm. It's a real quick visual reference. Is my fire pushing or pulling?
Right. Yeah, it is great.
And seeing those things. But like I say, I'm able to, you know, 1403. You want to have your seasoned people in there igniting fires. I don't disagree with that either. Dump me in a ton of seasoned people. I'll have them with me all day long. Right. You know, it's, but I really enjoy having those youngsters and young officers, young firefighters in there when that growth, that birth happens. And then they get to see sometimes that full life cycle of the fire, see that full extinguishment. That's something I am crazy glad the fire service, man, put the fire out. I think there's only a few places left probably that are, you know, hang on, don't put it out all the way. You know, Chuck's got to do all this stuff. Man, let it burn, put it out, do overhaul and extension, whatever you're going to do. Teach people how to kill fire. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and I think that ripple effect, I think it'll cure some of our safety culture. Mm-hmm. I can't help but notice that our largest safety culture guys came from that era when they weren't allowed to actually attack. I'm no Dr. Phil or anything else, but man, is that a training scar from their infancy in the fire service? No, we're not going to let you attack it.
Right. Well, when you and I came in the fire service, you wouldn't put water on smoke. You didn't open that nozzle till you're on top of the fire. that's, you talk about a training scar. That's a big ass training scar. And
Oh,
how many
absolutely.
people died? How many civilians died because of that training? And how many firefighters got hurt or killed because of that training? It's
100%.
terrible.
It wasn't that short of a gap. Like I say, when my dad came in the 70s, after I went to Aaron's class the first time, the nozzle forward, it's like, hey, Dad, we just did this stuff. And all this, at that point, I guess he had retired by then. 38 plus years, he's like, hang on, y'all aren't opening the nozzle anymore? Why'd you stop? I'm like, and I'm sitting there going through these leaflets of information that he poured into me as a kid, a young man. I'm like, man, we didn't spend enough time talking about how y'all stayed alive in the 70s, and those guys that raised them out of the 50s and 60s. Man, open up, put the fire out, everything gets better. I'd heard that, but I didn't have that correspondence, and you're the same way. No, it's going to be the worst family vacation ever, getting to the fun part, and then and then you're gonna get steamed, you're gonna get this, and it makes perfect sense why we got steamed or still get steamed.
Right.
We're in that superheated environment, and when you look at guys now, Aaron Fields, Jay Bonifield, Ian Bennett, those guys that are really, really preaching, flowing, and moving. Well, hell yeah. And I think it's Chief Ike and some of those guys. I can dry out wet. I can't unburn burnt.
Yeah.
And, and I look back over the fires I've made, and if anybody that's listening, even the smallest relic will mean something to somebody. And what they appreciate most is that you spent the time to look. But I've brought people out stuff that's charred and given it to them, and they, the hugs, the whatever. Man, if we'd have opened up 2 seconds earlier, would that still be intact?
Yeah, that's that horrible what if question that I think we need to bear the burden of every fire we go to. What if? I always come back to Nick Peppard and how he saved a guy, but he was unhappy with how he saved him. He wanted to be better. He felt like he could do better, and he did. That's what his whole thing is. He's improved himself. But when we go into fires, if we don't honestly look at what we did and try to improve, then we're just wasting our time, for the next fire. I don't care if the fire goes out or not. Could it have gone out better? Could it have gone out faster? Like Nick, I got somebody out, but if I got him out a couple seconds earlier, would they even be going to the hospital to get checked out? And it's a burden because you got to be honest with yourself, and we're in an ego-driven service. We all have egos, and it's unfortunate. We shouldn't, but we do. But if we weren't an ego-driven service, we would do every fire like that. Like, man, that fire went perfect, except for maybe we could have done this better. Maybe we could have done. That's the thing that gets me, is that we're not. And I'm sure I was the same way when I was younger. We don't want to pretty much put our job through the microscope because we don't want to see what we don't know or what we did wrong.
Very true. Well, and the part that cracks me up with it, though, is we want to compare ourselves to the athletes and to this, the other people, why are they making this? It's a kid's game. Well, we're doing a kid's job. I mean, most of us wanted to be firemen since we were little kids. Mike Dugan says, I've grown old, but I haven't grown up. You're absolutely right. If we can get to that point, one, we're reviewing the tape. We're doing the stuff. The Cowboys did not make it past, their point in the playoffs. You know what? Those guys, for their millions, it should not be the same mistakes next year. And, and they're going to take their time off. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. But they are in there. They are learning. If we want to be called professionals, professionals act a certain way. Professionals review the tape. Professionals look and try to seek out and find that better way that Nick talks about. One of the things I enjoy doing, and you were talking about, YouTube and stuff and sending videos. one of my young guys came to me several years ago, and he showed me this video, and it was off the West Coast. It was Spanish tile roofs, and this, that, and the other. And I don't remember how long it was, 10, 15-minute video. I watched them pull up. I watched them make their initial stretch. And then he noticed that I was actively not watching the video. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I mean, it's getting to the cool part. And I'm like, okay, let me know when it gets there. And this young man, love him to death, very, very good guy, one of my solid top performers. He's like, well, what do I see? I was like, I saw him park the apparatus in a good place. They left good room for the truck. It looked like a solid stretch. You could tell it wasn't the pikeman's day one pulling the hose. From there, it's not our building. And I took the chance because I knew he wouldn't, not that he wouldn't understand, he wasn't understanding where I was at. I said, it's a stucco Spanish tile building. We don't have those in Central Texas. We have balloon frame, heavy plank walls, shiplap ceilings. We do have basements in certain portions. And if it's in the wall, it's in the roof, or it's under the house. I mean, we have traveling fires. We don't have those fires. So the tactic, once they turn the hose on, is fighting more of a containerish room and contents fire and the roofs are actually designed to hold those Spanish tiles. You peel back our layers of shingles, you're finding the cedar shakes underneath most places. He's like, huh. I said, find the fires of what we're going to be fighting, and you'll see the best stuff. And so when I look for things now, when I look for tape to review, that's how I found Highland Park, Michigan. Scott Ziegler brought them into some notoriety with this helmet cam footage a few years back. I reached out to those guys and I was like, hey, wow, I'm seeing some similarities. Wow, balloon frame construction. Few more basements than we got. It's Michigan. They're in the center of Detroit. Few more basements than we got, but we have crawl spaces. I have to worry about, even if it's a 4-foot fall, I would rather not do that. And be waist deep in something. And then what struck me most, their manpower. Man, they're hitting this every day, 6 to 8 guys. And there for a period of time, they were one of the busiest fire departments in the nation. And it was not uncommon for these guys, multiple fires a week, if not a shift. I'm like, okay, I want to find out, first and foremost, how are you utilizing your staff? We all got beat over the head about the same time with the 2 in, 2 out, this, that, and the other. People have to go where the fire's at and kill it. Mm-hmm. Now, I temper that with something my dad said. And as I look around my house, with the exception of the 2 bathrooms, I can hit every single room from an exterior window. That makes sense to me.
Right.
Transitional attack to me has never not made sense. What's not made sense to me is, okay, I would rather pull 2 lengths of hose at the beginning when I've got all my energy and strength, take one to where I'm going to start fighting fire, one to where I'm going to end up fighting fire. That way I don't have to move, even if it's 20, 30 feet, I don't have to reposition all that hose in the yard. I just lay one down, walk over to the other one, just keep fighting fire.
All right.
But Brian Bastinelli out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He and I've talked a couple of times. We are Hillsboro. We're getting rental occupancies in our downtown taxpayers. It's been several decades since that's occurred. Okay, wow. I have not thought about fighting fire, an occupied fire above the first floor in one of these buildings, period. I called a buddy of mine that I met through Nozzle Forward, said, hey, who's doing these fires on a regular basis? He's like, man, you need to call this guy in Harrisburg. Brian Bastinelli answers the phone. We've talked numerous times. Kind of the same situation. I like it. They're handling it short, staffed, 8 to 10 guys before the rest of the box gets there, which takes a few minutes. Okay, if you had to put your 2 people someplace, where, why, what resources, what equipment, man, those are the decisions I want to look at. And when I look at the film that I watch and pursue, okay, wow, is that going to make us better in the long term? That's one of the reasons, sending the guys to nozzle forward. Man, that's a no-brainer. One, just the infectiousness of his cadre. That alone, I was one of the few chief officers at the class I went to see those guys actively come up. Okay, my turn, and then they're making the run and doing the stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on, what just happened? And I felt compelled. I'm not so bendy. I'm up front with that. My flexibility left years ago. For me to do the crooked lean looks ridiculous. And the clamp slide and all that stuff. But to see those guys do those things, man, okay, no, I'm getting in another rep. I'm doing this. Came back to the department. I went with four of my young firefighters and patrol officers went. And they were like, okay, man, this is a blast. All right, let's do what he said. Let's get some more people into it before we just start showing people the stuff. Does it have its place? Yes. Are we fortunate most days we're walking to the seat of the fire due to the way the building structures are? Absolutely. But it also gave that relationship. I think I sent you a couple of pictures. A couple of those were when Aaron was down. I approached Aaron. The videos that he had showed, I could tell were fixed facilities and stuff like that. And I just asked a simple question back to the acquired structure conversation. Have you gotten to do this in actual structures, documenting, able to document what you're doing? And he said, years ago, the equipment wasn't all, the resources he needed to truly document what he got to do, he didn't particularly have. So I just told him, I said, listen, I got a few. Give me a call. Kind of left it at that. Exchanged our information, went our separate ways. I honestly can't remember now. I probably bounced him because I am that guy. Sent him an email, said, hey, brother, I'm just lining up my year, X, Y, and Z. Let me know. He's like, hey, let's get together and talk. So we got on the phone, a guy named Mark Haw with Fire Engineering. And we laid out a date. The first year they've come twice. They were here twice, total of 10 days. We did 8 structures, just under 70 burns. And what he wanted was a specific heat release rate. And so, and I'll say it now, this isn't carte blanche. Aaron's probably not the guy to start the storytelling with. To do hay and pallets, and we didn't talk about this earlier. Have you ever been the stoker for one of those? Evelyn?
Yes.
I love stoking, but man, once you get thermally loaded, there's never enough stokers. You go back in, and then inevitably, what happens is out in the yard or on the drill field, they're slow on the hose work, and so you're looking at this ripping good fire. It's gone into its decaying phase at that point, unless you can run back in real quick, get it fluffed up, or you got product on the side, you can fluff it back up for them to see some fire. And then some jackwagon on the hose, I thought we were going to see some heat. And I may be the only one. I'm like, well, if y'all would have stretched, it's a static stretch. The hose is there. Oh, training scar. Y'all didn't set it back up exactly like you would want your finished stretch to be. So it was a wadded pile of crap out there, or the wrong loops on the bottom, whatever, and you're fighting the hose and each other instead of fighting the fire. I get it.
Right.
If I'm the only one, it's just me. You come walking out, nobody touch me, and then you can tell the stokers on those burns are over there by themselves, and there's not enough things to make that situation be right. So one of the things we looked at and we talked about doing, and Aaron is brilliant with this, he wanted specific BTU releases. So in the state of Texas, Commission on Environmental Quality controls all outdoor burning. There's an exemption in there for fire department burning, and it actually says 24-hour exemption. Most states have that exact same cookie cutter response. I approached them and said, hey, in order to do this safely, and I used it, Safety of the inside crews, we would like to do fully furnished rooms. They looked at it, we talked about it, and this is one of the things that I've done over the years that sets me apart a little bit. The level of safety I try to put into these things. You know, do I think 1403, we're talking about that excellent foundation for that. It is literally written in blood. You can see where the guys ignored certain things, and it cost either instructors or students, or it cost the reputation of that agency to the point that they can't do those things.
Exactly.
So if it says 2 hose lines, I'm probably putting a 3rd. I will sprinkle attic spaces. Pre-cutting a vent hole so we can make the fire go where we want it to go. Out of 64, 65 burns, and he was looking for some specific stuff. And I think you said you've taken his class before, right?
Yes.
When did you take it? How long ago?
Oh, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was 5, 6 months ago, maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
yeah. It's been.
Did he go over the Texas burns?
Not that I remember. No.
Okay. You'll be able to, and we won't say this online because he keeps it guarded. On his page where he allows you the information and stuff on the Texas burns. So that's, and some of it, I always get nervous also, always. And honestly, being totally transparent, is this going to be the fire? Is this going to be the evolution that something simply happens?
Right.
And when I approach, finishing out Aaron's deal, those guys were so phenomenal to watch work. We literally got, I'm going to say, past 50, 55, almost 60 fires to where we had the heat release range between 1,000 and somewhere 1,800 degrees. They opened up, fire is instantly getting put out. We literally went from room and contents fires to we actually had structure fires that they were fighting. Now, to make that happen, he brought 18, 20 plus guys, top tier pipemen from around the nation and up into Canada. These guys knew their job. They all spoke the identical language, which made it awesome. Right. And then the pre-drills that we did to, okay, here's where we're going to put fire. Here's what we expect. Here's what we know is going to have happen. Here's where we want cameras. Here's where we want this. Not a single piece of equipment. Nobody injured. Nothing. It was insane to watch them work, and so proud. I've gone to several since then because I love hearing him talk about it. And I was there. My role was doing certain things. I sent you a picture of me holding all these Scott bottles. I'm bringing them extra bottles. I don't mind being the gopher at any time. I love that picture also because you can't really see my face. I think everybody should be working on the fireground. I didn't have the sweet stash back then. I may have looked up, but when you tailor your stuff, do I think every training evolution needs that? Absolutely not. As we said earlier, I think 99% of live fire training should be in the bay floor, and that you should have that choreography down so well that in those moments where you're switching from plan A to plan B, like in my station, we'll periodically, if a truck's at maintenance, we'll flip-flop the bay around a little bit. Okay, wow, that little bit right there is the truck now in the number 3 stall instead of the number 2 stall, and the engines move someplace. Okay, let's just stretch from here, point A to point B. It's that little bit different. Not be upset when it does hang up. Okay, why did it hang up? Let's address that. Is that something we can go back? even if it happens one time, okay, did we have a plan for that? And that plan should, in my opinion, should always be, wow, can I fix this problem?
Yeah.
Nothing makes me more upset. I won't say angry, but more upset when I see the guy with the tip looking back, expecting this wad of shit he just stretched to miracle itself. And he's within 10 feet of some problem, and good on. I got to, we were talking about arriving. I stayed the night due to weather a couple of weeks ago, and we caught a working fire on the north end of our district. I stretched first line. As I'm walking back to a problem, the chauffeur's walking up to the problem, and we both got there and resolved it. And we patted each other. We worked together a long time, and went and fought fire. Can I fix this problem first? And I think so many times that answer is yes. I don't know where or how we allow this self-righteousness that, everyone will fix me, No, lay the nozzle down, go fix it, come back, do whatever you got to do. But with the acquireds, one of the approaches I take also that's helped me out and been very beneficial, when I see that structure, I see it all the way burnt down. And then I build it back in my mind. And then when I get to make entry and when I start doing any sort of prep work, if I was the fire, where would I go?
Right.
If I was this, okay, if we're doing whatever, and I imagine it through the different levels, is it going to be a group? Kevin Lewis with Twisted Truckee has come down. He's a Dallas firefighter. Their shift on their own has come down a couple of times. They want to fight fires exactly like they would in South Dallas. Okay, no problem. Let me look at this. Let's get a good game plan together. Nobody is freelancing. Nobody is improvising. Let's set you an event that meets those objectives. And then we'll break it back down to, we'll get as low as sometimes, okay, what is this individual guy? What specifically is he working on? Okay, great. Does that fit into the whole scheme of an engine and truck working together in a multi-company operation? Yes or no? If it's yes, great, jam on. If it's no, okay, do we need to pull this out to the side and look at something and this and that? I did a burn not too long ago. It was actually in the house that 3M used. It was our neighboring district had the house, got it donated, and went through all the stuff. 3M did all their stuff, which everybody will be seeing here in a couple of months, and at Indianapolis. As you know, the home department allowing us to do that in their district. Tell me what you need. And what he said, and it was neat, he's like, hey, I need my young officers to be able to direct my young firefighters. And I know the guy, he's actually one of our part-time guys, fantastic, phenomenal firefighter. When I look up and Kyle is walking over, my day instantly gets better.
Right.
I mean, he's just that kind of guy in life and on the fire ground. And not the time for the story. He actually saved my total embarrassment in life, and we'll talk about that at another time or later. But he followed up that request with, we've been working on this stuff already. This is the culmination of what we've been training on. I was like, fantastic. Because he probably knew I was going to, no, go work on that shit in the bay. Sort out talking and feeling good and hurt feelings in the bay. And what we did, we worked backwards through it. Relatively young people on the hose line, experienced firefighters as officers, just young officers. We started at the fire and worked our way back to the truck. And with me and Kyle and his number 2 guy from their department, we were the hose line, letting them view us, set a manageable room and contents fire. Okay, watch what it's doing. Anybody in, and not saying this to be belittling at all, the same way we talk to those kindergartners and 3rd graders, we need to hear that sometimes too.
Right.
When I was doing pub eds, okay, I'm putting my hood on. Y'all still see it's me? Yes, sir, Mr. Dave. Put my mask on. Don't I sound funny? Yes, sir. And we would carry that stuff on. Okay, let's look at it. Okay, the fire's coming out of the room into this next room. And what we literally did, and we had the room marked. Now I still had it marked from when 3M was there. And you'll see in the footage, whatever they choose to show, they don't ask me. But I'll put stuff at markers. Like the house was furnished for the 3M shoot. And so we had photos on the wall and all this and that. It was supposed to look like a lived-in structure. And when they asked me where I wanted the photos, I was like, well, I usually put everything where it should be at eye level, and I can see it degrading as the fire progresses. And if it's a totally sterile house, I'll put a paint marker something. And I'll usually do one up and down, and I'll put it at the different levels. Most of our ceilings are 8 to 10 feet, like everybody. At about that 6 to 7 foot mark, if I see that paint line degrading, okay, I've got convective currents, radiant heat, possibly not direct flame impingement, but I've got things happening in that room. I don't have the money to buy all these fancy thermocouplers that people are putting in these facilities.
Yeah.
An $8 can of spray paint, or some house paint, God forbid. Here's that line. Wow, see that paint bubbling. Okay, everybody, let's move down to this next layer. If I see my 4 foot lines being affected, okay, I've had something go wrong offside. And do I have a wind-driven event? Whatever's happening, making it push down to that lower level where we would be wanting to find our safety. Show clear delineation marks halfway into the next room. People struggle so much with when to open the line. Well, because they're running to the event. If you start at the event and work your way backwards, it's fairly clear, oh, wow, we would want to open up right here. And so a lot of times, now not crazy, I don't want to be getting chased out of anything. Right. It's difficult to run forwards these days, let alone run backwards. But okay, these rooms had ceiling fans in them. Hey, when y'all get here, and if the fire is touching the ceiling fan, put it back in the box. Those guys that mess with the cobras that live, they know exactly when to make that sucker go back into its little holder. Yeah. And they understand those concepts. Jay Bonifield the other day was talking about single room of fire will extend a time out from its height. So a single room, you can expect the bad parts of the Bible to be happening 8 to 10 feet out from that room. As it's cooking off. 2 rooms, expect 15 to 20 feet. We get a lot of snakes where I'm at throughout a year's time. Most snakes can strike a time and a half their body length. And I'm like, or their coiled length or whatever. I'm like, that makes perfect sense. I know I'm going to that room about 10, 15 feet out. Let's start putting this sucker back into the box. Absolutely. And then however we're going to kill it. So yeah, we worked all the way back out to the rig, a series of 3 or 4 controlled fires that me and the training cadre was doing. And then we started slowly implementing them back forward. Hey, here's exactly what we talked. Oh yeah, 10 minutes ago, we saw this, saw the reaction, saw what to expect. Too many times it's your dad or that mean uncle just throwing you in the pool and expect you to be able to swim because that's how you learn to swim. Right. And when we break those training cycles and start creating positive training stars, because there are good scars. Yes. And as we enhance things, there's stretch marks, there's growth areas that you live with that rebreed positive moments. And so, yeah, I love doing those kinds of classes. And I'll tell you, I make myself available. The people out there that are doing them, I'm so proud to know some of these guys. Like I say, Jay Bonifield and Ian Bennett. Ian Bennett over in West Coast Fire. Holy mackerel! Some of the footage they've been able to capture that I don't know how to accurately say how awesome some of that footage, and then their just willingness to be transparent. They had one, several months ago. It got bigger it got bigger faster than they anticipated, and they opened up the safety line, and as soon as they opened up both lines, it went straight back in.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I showed my guys, because we get a lot of fires in my district that are legitimately 2-line fires, and with a 1 inch and 3/4, we do not go to our 2-inch or 2.5 nearly enough.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is due to manpower, but man, 2-inch and 3/4 lines will put out a ton of fire if they're used in concert together. So yeah, no, as I meet people, I am that guy. I mean, I'm inviting people. Hey, you want to come burn my city? We've got stuff. Like I say, we're an older city. After World War II, we had a lot of families, as a lot of places did. Wherever they had been stationed was beautiful, or they had met somebody. That's where we saw a big shift. Going into the 60s and 70s, we got those other shifts. So there's just a lot of families that just don't live there anymore. And those structures, some of them can't be burned in. We did a tornado class. We are in Tornado Alley. This house had been torn down. Unfortunately, I call them my wood thieves. They came through and got the wood that they could turn around and sell. Very lucrative market, by the way. But she's left with this pile of crap of what used to be the residence. Can we help her out? Well, one of the things we do in the city, if we can do any sort of training evolution at all, we will come in and we'll haul that debris off.
Right.
We know at some point it's going to be our problem anyways. We might as well jump in right then. It's part of our normal waste management that we do. We order up a couple of roll-off dumpsters. Either me or one of our public works guys operates the loaders, and we go through. With her house, one of my guys is USAR trained. I was like, hey, brother, we know this is a very realistic look. If we had a tornado come through or had a collapse in one of these structures, man, take the guys and gals through what we need to be looking for survivability profiling, post-incident, this, that, and the other. Man, he went out there, great class, put it all in a dumpster. They've got a clean lot now that they can build on or sell or do whatever they want to do. It goes without question, we do a ton of breaching, truck work. The college in town will come out with their candidates and do truck work and do breaching. I'm very fortunate to have some good buddies, Nate Irwin and Billy Galvin with CHAR, CHAR. Love their tools. Now, they're both out of Highland Park. That's how I met them. They came up with the tool. I'm like, man, this is going to be fantastic for pulling our ceilings. I highly recommend it where you're at with balloon frame construction that I know y'all got.
Yeah.
What we're able to do, and we're actually going to work on some additional video footage for them specifically, is that transition. If my pipeman's doing his thing, I'm pulling ceiling, hang that tool on that rafter, we're shooting that guy straight up into the attic space, or down for that matter. It's a great transitioning tool, up or down. Love it. Casey Towery with Gen 2 pike poles. He's out of Dallas Fire. It's the old wind pole, and it's called a Dallas pike pole. Big old harpoon. He modified that. Hands down, the absolute best ceiling. If you have difficult ceilings, that is the tool you want to have for making that access point and starting to pull planks. We've had Lockwood hooks, the pigs, all of Mitch Hunter's stuff with Fire Mall. Those guys are aces. And we reach out to them, the hydro vent. In fact, I wrote his name down because I didn't want to forget his name. Kevin and James O'Donnell out of the Chicago area. man, it's a great limited manpower ventilation tool and firefighting tool. It'll do both. I'll reach out to these guys, say, hey, I really like your tool. Would you like some pictures of it actually fighting fire? And some of them are like, well, heck yeah. Yeah, where do we send you one? Can we come? I'm like, come on, bring it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for this tool because I think it might help our guys and gals fight fire. That's actually how 3M got involved. We were actually wearing MSA at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing wrong with them. Fought a ton of fire. They make a fantastic product. Brady Mollenauer was our rep for the area. He called, hey, do you have a house? I'm like, yeah, let me look. Let me look at the list. The list, by the way, still just of unoccupied is over 100 just in the city proper.
Wow.
And then there's easily probably another 100 to 150 just in the county. And then I look everywhere. I literally, a tear comes to my eye if I see one getting torn down that I didn't get to come out. My boys, if they see furniture set out the curb, they're like, oh God, please don't pick this couch up on our way to school. I'm like, do you realize I could use that for this prop or this drill or whatever? Constantly being thrifty. But Brady called and asked me, I said yes. Hey, be on this call here next week. That willingness, it was a guy named Tim Long and Dan Schultz. Tim works for 3M. Dan Schultz runs Dan Schultz Productions out of Atlanta, Georgia. Phenomenal photographer and production company. It was funny because they were talking about these things and they had done, obviously 3M's been around, Scott Safety's been around. They were running into some difficulty adding fire to what they were doing. And the pictures and the videos they were getting, I'm like, no problem, come on down. Then they kept saying, we may ask you to do something over. We don't want to interrupt your training. We don't want to interrupt. And I was like, hang on, guys. If you're coming, we're doing every bit of this for you. And they're like, hang on, what? I was like, no, if you agree to come down, I'll make sure my people are squared away. If I need to bring in my buddies, you tell me what you need, what you want to end up seeing. We will get training out of it. One, it's products that we're not familiar with. It's stuff that we need to use. And it's always, anytime, whether it's a candle on fire or we've been able to take a house all the way to the ground, it's learning until we back the truck back in the station. And they're like, holy, wow, okay, yeah. So they came down, so incredibly proud. Now I got asked, and I'm actually in one of the videos, just a little camp picking up my helmet or whatever. I had somebody ask me, I thought you were in these. I was like, oh, I am. I'm that piece of smoke right there, or I'm that fire over here. And well, we didn't see you. I'm like, well, my job's not to be seen. They're filming a kitchen fire or whatever.
You're supposed to just feel that I'm there.
Exactly, that presence, But have you been? Do you get to go to FDIC living that close?
I do. Matter of fact, this year, my sponsors, Fire Facilities Incorporated, has me at their booth doing some live podcasts. So when you're up there,
oh, awesome,
come check me out.
Definitely. I should be up there. Actually, going to be a short week this week or this time. So if you've been in the past couple of years, it's been so amazing. I guess it was 3 years ago. One of my guys was on the out above Steak and Shake, and it's literally like, I think it's a 30 by 60 foot picture of him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's you. I took a picture. Every aisle was a 3M poster, delineating all the aisles. And we had helped out a couple other groups and stuff. Our little bitty city had more advertising than anybody. And I'm like, and me and the director of public safety, he goes along too. We're sitting there just in awe, and been very fortunate. They've come back down 2 more times. They just came down in September and did some fantastic stuff. We actually did an automobile scene. And this, if I were to tell anybody that's getting into this type of stuff, seek out those things. And when people tell you no, ask them why. And a lot of times it's something that's either unfounded or they have some preconceived, well, all you want to do is this. That's the first thing that the commission had told me. All you want to do is burn it down and call it training. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow. And that made me upset.
As it should.
At my core. But then I started thinking about, wow, I literally had just got back from Maryland and Emmitsburg. And in the class, we watched videos of jack wagons literally burning it down and calling it training. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, they're spot on. Are they nailing it? Okay, how do I counter this? What if I don't burn it down? And there was a guy at the time, he's like, well, why would you not burn it down? I'm like, well, one, if I burn down this house, training is done. And by no means, as a boss, you know, we're both bosses. If we burnt down a house on a room and contents fire, I would expect to be reprimanded and should be reprimanded. Now, the fact that society is going to bring us cakes and cookies and, you know, thank you for trying. Mm-hmm. If I'm setting room and contents fires as a training officer, as a double IC,
there you
that's
go.
The only part of that's the only part of 1403. I'm like, really? All the names on that list, and I know some of them, like, really? Y'all couldn't have come up with something way more cool than double IC? But but I am going to get a shirt made that says that on there, you know. And
double IC.
Exactly. But if we're setting room and contents fires, they should be room and contents fires. You know, and I think there's guys that have been, you know, having both, you've been through the class, studied 1403, you're one of the instructors. Yeah, those guys, when it went sideways, they were doing something that was totally unrealistic. Most of the fires where we've seen injuries and unfortunately fatalities occur, we probably wouldn't be fighting that way on a normal basis, period.
Right.
You know, I'm going to set 3 rooms ablaze. Here you go on a red line. No.
Well, that goes back to what you said earlier, though. People back in the day, especially if you look at the fatalities that 1403 has been written, you know, out of, yep. These guys were trying to gut check their new recruits, you know, by setting multiple fires and putting holes in walls and saying, okay, we're using live victims. They were trying to gut check, which I just don't believe you can do that. Today's podcast was sponsored by Fire Facilities, designers and manufacturers of realistic, built-to-last training structures and mobile units for 30 years. Make training count. Visit firefacilities.com for more information.